Chapter 26. When I got home, I found the rabbit crawling around the living room on all fours. For a delicious moment, I thought he might have regressed to his wild state, but it turned out he had only dropped his contact lens, a plate glass oval large enough to double as serving platter for roast squab. He buffed it on his sleeve and popped it into his eye, but I don't think it improved his perspective any, since his face remained as sour as a dill pickle and nearly as green. "Want to talk about it?" I asked. He shook his head so vigorously that his ears wound around each other. I had to step on his foot to keep him from helicoptering off the floor. "It might help," I said. He shambled into the living room and collapsed on the sofa. He curled his fingers into a fist and rapped one of the cushions his best licked. Some puncher. With a right cross that week, I wouldn't back him in a match against Joe Palooka's thumb. "What does she mean I'm a turkey?" he blurted out in a balloon the size and consistency of a squishy honeydew. So he had been eavesdropping after all. Maybe she called you a turkey because you gobble your food. A pretty good joke, I thought, but it left old Yucca Minute stone cold. Tunes. You figure out what tickles their fancy, because I sure can't. "Somebody put those words in her mouth," he said. "She would never talk about me that way of her own accord." Right. The fly on the wall was a ventriloquist. "Don't joke about it," he snorted. Ever hear a rabbit snort? Imagine an effeminate donkey with bad adenoids. "I'm very upset by what I've heard." "You shouldn't have eavesdropped." "I'm a private detective now. It's part of my job." "Then you'll just have to learn to roll with it. Remember, people who peek through keyholes have to expect an occasional poke in the eye." The rabbit got up, stood in front of the window, and absorbed enough mellow morning sunlight to cast a shadow of his former self. "Was that one of those gems of folk wisdom we detectives throw out with such proficiency?" "Call me the old philosopher." "The only old philosopher I remembered wound up with a gut full of hemlock." "Maybe he should have stuck to a bland diet." The rabbit threw up his paws in surrender. Match, set, and champion to yours truly. Roger dropped a small milky white balloon to the floor and bonked it across the carpet with his big toe. "What was the comic you and Jessica were talking about?" he asked, rather idly considering the grave implications of my answer. "And how does Sid Sleaze fit into it?" If he wanted sugarcoating, the rabbit picked the wrong candy apple. I laid it out for him, complete in every detail. The comic is a racy number called Lewd, Crude, and In the Mood. It's 8 pages long and shows Jessica making whoopee. You heard Jessica's version of how it came to be. The part of it that interests me isn't the book itself, but rather the book's negatives. Jessica says she bought the negatives from Sleaze shortly after you were married and destroyed them. Yet I found a piece of those same negatives in Rocco's fireplace, which means that Sleaze sold either Jessica or Rocco a copy. "Impossible!" The rabbit shook his head emphatically enough to put a spin on his next balloon. I had to slow it to a stop by dragging my finger across it before I could read it. "I don't see how he could have sold either of them a copy," it said. "A copy negative always comes out slightly fuzzy and easy to spot. I can recognize one easily, and I'm sure both Jessica and Rocco could too." The rabbit spoke his next words staring straight up at the ceiling, so that balloon shot out parallel to the floor. It hit the wall and fell down behind the sofa. Since he had his eyes closed, he was totally oblivious to his balloon's final resting place. I had to snag it with a bent coat hanger and pull it out to see what he had said. "This comic of Jessica's," it turned out to be. "Show it to me." "I don't think so. It's as raw as any I've ever seen." I was certainly having my troubles conversing with the rabbit today. His next balloon came out so faintly written that I had to drag it within 6 inches of my nose before I could decipher it. "Show it to me!" I pulled the comic out of my jacket pocket and handed it over. "You're the boss." Roger held it the way people handle a dead mouse, at arm's length between his first 2 fingers. Without even glancing at it, he dumped it into my waste can and flipped a lighted match in after it. I broke the record for the 5-yard dash getting across the living room, but still arrived too late. By the time I reached the wastebasket, the comic was nothing but a smoldering ash. It crumbled to dust at my touch. Not so much as a picture or a word remained visible. "That was a terrifically boneheaded play," I yelled at the sullen bunny. "That comic set me back $200. What did you have to go and torch it for?" The rabbit stood up on his tiptoes, which brought his eyes just about level with mine. "You and I have to get something straight," he said. I prayed for him to poke me in the chest with his finger so I could snap it off and hand it to him wrapped in a hot dog bun, but no such luck. He kept his arms hanging limply at his side. "There's a fundamental difference in the way we want to conduct this case. I think we better resolve it right here and now." His toes got wobbly, so he put his heels back on the floor, and we continued our discussion eye to chest. "You're getting paid to prove I didn't kill Rocco," he said, "and to find out who killed me. I didn't hire you to harass my wife, so leave her alone. She's totally innocent." "She wasn't so innocent when she made that pornographic comic," I reminded him. That got the rabbit back up on his tiptoes. "You heard what she said. Sleaze gulled her into making that piece of trash. She's not the kind of woman who would do that of her own free will. If she says she was tricked into it, I believe her. I believe everything she says." "She says she saw you kill Rocco. You believe that too?" The Roger waffled so quickly I could almost taste butter and syrup. "No, I don't believe that. I suspect she's being pressured to implicate me. Possibly by Dominic DeGreasy. He's that kind of rapscallion." "Okay, let's suppose for a minute we play it your way. What does that mean I do?" "Jessica asked you to prove that she didn't kill me. I want you to do just that. I want you to prove whatever she wants proved. If I'm ever tempted to take a tooned case again, I hope somebody puts a bullet through me first. I can't oblige. I already have you for a client, and it would be unethical for me to take on somebody else." He half shut his eyelids, the way people do when they pass a cripple on the sidewalk. "From what I heard, ethics never bothered you before. Why the sudden change of heart? Sure, it's 2 clients, but it's also 2 fees." That illustrates the first rule of detecting. Always wear your shorts snugged up tight so you don't feel the pain when your client kicks you below the belt. "You really hurt me with that kind of rotten talk," I protested. "I'm not in this one for the money. I'm in it because I think you're almost an alright guy, for a toon that is, and I want to see you go out happy." Here I practically proposed marriage to him, and he still refused to back off. "Then do what I ask. Take Jessica's case." I tried to grab him by the shoulders, but my hand slipped down, and I wound up shaking sense into him at about the elbow level. "Damn it, Roger! Don't you understand? Your beloved sweetie Jessica, who you so badly want me to help, is the one who shot you." At this point, any rational being would have given in to logic. That's what makes toons so frustrating. There's not a one of them with the rationality of a dead frog. "I don't care how incriminating the evidence is against Jessica. I don't care what she said in your office. I don't care what you think about her guilt or innocence. I only know that Jessica loved me and would not have harmed me. If you won't take on 2 clients, drop me and accept her. In fact, I'll go even further than that. Consider yourself fired. As of right this instant, you're off my case, so there's no more conflict for your precious ethics." "I'm sorry, Roger. No go. I'm going to clear your name and bring in your murderer, whether you want me to or not." Roger huffed and he puffed, but he couldn't blow me down. Not once I had my mind bricked up. Best he could do was to try for a compromise. "Play it your way, then. But if it turns out to be Jessica who killed me, I don't want her punished for it. I want you to get her off the hook. Will you at least humor me that far?" "That's about the dopiest thing I've ever heard," I said. "What did you expect from a rabbit?" said Roger. "Will you do it my way? If she's guilty, will you get her off?" "I'll think about it," I promised, and I did. for maybe half a second, just long enough to picture Jessica Rabbit dangling by her gorgeous neck from the top of the nearest tree.
I'm here, baby! Happy birthday!
Come on, Roger, let's go home. I'll bake you a carrot cake.